After Game 5, the sting of letting a closeout game slide is one thing, but the latest updates make things even worse than we initially thought. Not only will Buffalo go on the road to play an extra game, they'll have to do so without one of their top contributors. However, they're still in control. With a 3-2 series lead, these early bouts of adversity might be the pressure that the Sabres need to bounce back in a big way come Friday night. Hello and welcome. My name is Ryan Lee, and welcome to Sabres Digest. All things Buffalo Sabres will be here on Sabres Digest. Latest news, updates, reactions, and more. So subscribe down below to follow along for the journey, and thank you so much for watching. So after Game 5, it was a tough loss, right? 2-1 in overtime, the first time the Sabres have dealt with overtime at all in this series. And they had to really take it without one of their top contributors for basically the entire game. And that was Noah Ostlund, who got landed on early on in, I believe it was the first period. And it really stings, especially for Ostlund, because he was having such a promising and productive year to this point, and he was one of the most dangerous Sabres throughout the entire postseason, being second on the team in expected goals per game. In terms of goals per game, he also led the Sabres, and even high danger chances too. He really was one of the key catalysts to the Sabres once he was inserted into the lineup for that road stretch in Boston, and he actually carried that out in that early portion of Game 5. He just didn't get a chance to see it out because he got knocked down so early. And not only is it one thing for Ostlund to leave the game and that be that, but he's expected to miss some time, and it's probably going to be a while before we get him back in the playoffs. For anyone in the Buffalo area on social media, you know Thigh Doctor. He basically breaks down the video of an injury and just gives 2, maybe 3 potential diagnoses. He's not exact, but he usually guesstimates it, and he gives about an approximate timetable as to what that injury would take to recover. And across the board, at minimum, it's a week. On average, it's about 2. And for a guy like Noah Ostlund, who has been so dangerous in this playoff, that's essentially a full round if you really think about it. Assuming that the Sabres do close things out on Friday, that means that there's at least a full second round that most likely Noah Ostlund is going to miss. And because of the nature of Ostlund's injury, it could potentially free up room for other guys to enter the lineup. We saw Tyson Kozak jumping up on lines and Peyton Krebs being jumped to center of the fourth line and all the jumbling that Lindy Ruff had to do. But there is still center depth awaiting in the wings because of what's happened throughout the last several games, right? Josh Norris gets injured, insert Noah Ostlund. Noah Ostlund gets injured, reinsert Josh Norris. Especially with the quotes that Lindy Ruff had after the game saying that he's going to miss some time, referring to Ostlund's injury. But at the very least, Norris is ready to go for Game 6 after missing the last 3 games. And that definitely is promising. I can go into it in the next time before Game 6 begins. But at the very least, having another center in the wings definitely does help in terms of the overall arsenal the Sabres have. But you still have guys that are injured. Ostlund's going to miss some time. You still have Sam Carrick, who's still TBD. And there's been a lot of rumbling that just for the sake of depth and having an extra center on the roster, they could bring up Konsta Helenius from Rochester now that their Calder Cup run has ended. But it's one thing for Ostlund to be missing and Norris to be entered. But let's take a look at the game itself. Because in the grand scheme of things, even without Ostlund in the lineup, the Sabres held their own and held it really well. And part of that is because some of the big dogs finally were able to show up. You take a look at the first goal of the game. It was on the power play. Finally, officially a power play goal. And also, finally, we've seen Rasmus Dahlin get on the board, something that we've been kind of waiting for all series long. He scored the first power play of the series for Buffalo. He has also been one of the best defensemen across the board in these playoffs. He just hasn't been getting them on the offensive point side of things. He's third amongst all playoff defensemen in total XG in the playoffs in terms of the shots on goals per game. He's one of the top D-men in that aspect as well. And one of the things I thought was really interesting is he drew the most penalties out of everyone on Buffalo. And I think part of that is due to, your cheap shots from guys like Nikita Zadorov in Game 4 and whatnot. But Rasmus Dahlin's a guy who I was having this conversation with someone the other day that they really get under the skin of the opponents, but the difference between guys that just get under the opponent's skin and guys like Rasmus Dahlin is he absolutely has the play to back it up. Some guys are pests just for the sake of being pesty, and they just do so by throwing the body out and being physical. But Rasmus Dahlin could do that and then hurt you on the scoreboard as well. And he finally was able to get his for the first time in this series with that opening power play goal, which could potentially spell not only great things for Dahlin himself, but on the power play also. Because Dahlin's been waiting for these opportunities since the playoffs started. They just haven't gone for him yet. And that's something that's very reminiscent of the playoffs. Those unlucky bounces, your moments of dry spells and hot streaks and everything else, that all comes and goes when the playoffs start. But for Dahlin, one of the things I could be really optimistic and encouraged by is he was the best Sabre offensively throughout the entire playoffs. And he just hasn't really gotten those opportunities because so much of the extra attention on Boston has been on Dahlin. This is the XG for Game 5 via player. And it's one thing for Dahlin to show up, but also we can also look at one of the key reasons why the Sabres didn't take this one out is because no one else really showed up aside from Dahlin. And you see Alex Tuch that's in that third slot, but where's the rest of that top line? You see Peyton Krebs and Tage Thompson. They've been kind of asleep at the wheel during this game. And I do want to go over Tage Thompson before Game 6 starts because if he can finally get on the board or at the very least finally make those huge offensive plays that he's been kind of searching for this whole playoff, that could be another potential guy that could be unleashed just by that one goal going in and the spell of confidence that could follow. Especially when you consider that this game, at the end of it, was pretty much a coin toss. It was about as down the middle as you could get analytically. And even through the eye test, I felt like this really could go either way. It was the first overtime game for crying out loud, and it really played out that way too. Even when you look at some of the advanced analytics, the deserve to win-o-meter, the expected goals is actually favoring Buffalo by only about 0.2, 0.3, which isn't a lot. But you have to learn as the playoffs go along to figure out how to close out these tight games. And it's one thing to do in the regular season, but it's different in the playoffs. This is something the Sabres have been really good at throughout the entire regular season, is being able to find ways to get a goal, to maybe go ahead or find a game-tying goal, to get that special moment at the right time. But in the playoffs, it's obviously a whole different animal. And like we've said throughout this entire series, the Sabres are going to continue to build into their game as the series goes along, but also build up in terms of their overall experience and what they deal with as the playoffs go along also. I'm sure for a lot of these players, there could have been potential to say that they got shell-shocked by the overtime, by just a sheer lack of experience. You could also argue they got goalied by Jeremy Swayman because of the however many high danger opportunities right around that crease area that he was able to stop. That is all part of the playoff experience, and these guys, because they just haven't been there yet, they are learning it as they go along now. I'm sure if Game 6 goes to overtime, they're not letting David Pastrnak free on a breakaway, that's for sure. I'm sure they also are going to find new ways to add wrinkles to the power play. One of the reasons why the power play has been severely lacking is because it's the exact opposite of what the Sabres actually do in the 5-on-5 that's so successful for them. They're stagnant. They're stuck in the same place. There's no motion. There's no fluidity. You don't have guys going back and forth, crisscrossing, changing positions. Rasmus Dahlin always occupies the center of the point, but he scores the goal on the right side circle. Because that is what the Sabres do so well 5-on-5. For whatever reason, they completely go away from it on the power play. For the traditional setup and pass that the Bruins are really feasting on right now. But these tight games, these opportunities, these chances to close out series, Lindy Ruff said it in the past. The players have said it prior to Tuesday's game. The fourth one is the hardest. The Bruins have their back against the wall. They have nothing to lose. And the Sabres just have to learn and understand how these moments come to be. These moments of adversity and pressure are no stranger to the Buffalo Sabres. And I wouldn't expect any different going into Game 6. The same way that the Bruins were pissed off and angry and had nothing to lose in Game 5, well, that type of mentality can absolutely lead the way for Buffalo. They're scrappy, they're hungry, they want to be in this position, and not just that, they are still playing exceptional hockey. But against a lesser goaltender, like Jeremy Swayman, who has just recently been announced as a Vezina finalist, against a lesser goalie, they're going to get opportunities. It just so happens that they're playing the best goalie in the playoffs, arguably. But the Sabres have been getting their chances. Josh Norris could be a potential changeup that could help in its own way. But now that the power play is finally cracked open, now that one of the giants that's been held dormant finally has woken up and has finally gotten to feast a little bit, but these moments of adversity might not be the pressure that's needed to necessarily break them down, but to utilize that pressure to catapult them into what's ahead. The series is far from over. It's still a 3-2 lead in the series. Going into it, I expected this series to go 6. It's not over if it ends in 6. And even if it does, you still have that potential rest advantage against whoever else comes out of that Metro 2-3. But business first. Friday night, a game in Boston. You've been perfect there so far. And you've scored 9 goals in 2 games at TD Garden this playoff. This team can get it done. They've done it in Boston before. Now it's just time for them to go out there, play their game, and wrap it up. That'll do it for all of us here at Sabres Digest. Thank you so much for watching along. To follow all things Buffalo Sabres, your latest news, updates, reactions, and more, subscribe down below. And also leave a comment too, because I will be reading them throughout the entire playoff run. And like I mentioned, Josh Norris is most likely going to be a candidate to go in Game 6, even though he was on the injury report. But now that Noah Ostlund is out, we're going to be asking Norris to step in and contribute once again. And maybe by the start of round 2, we can finally get Sam Carrick into the way and have even more depth to work with, especially because Carrick was so good in the regular season that experience and depth could pay off in the long run. But that'll do it for us here at Sabres Digest. Thank you so much for joining us. Keep watching, stay tuned, have a good one, and go Sabres.